before that, are there any comments that you'd like to make regarding the presentation from the public today?
Well, one comment comes at first is I've never heard of strange lake. But
That's strange.
that is strange.
There's a lot of strange lakes out there right now because of the water. The saturation of the groundwater. And actually, I heard from the PUD commissioner last week that the Sparling well was 5 foot higher than its highest point ever. Yeah, they recorded that. So there's a lot of water out there.
We're way over the average of precipitation this year, and last year was way over. In regard to the shooting in the gravel pits, boy, that's a fact. You know, people do use those gravel pits. I remember when I was young, using that very gravel pit that they discussed in hidden trails. We were not blinking, you know, so. Valid point brought up, I believe.
So we do see a lot of brass, spent cartridges.
Yeah.
Up in the Forest Service roads. I was going to camp at a place, we had a great view of Mount Constance going up toward Mount Walker. Just a beautiful setting. And then as I was walking around, my feet were crunching all these shells.
As was stated this morning, we have had samples taken out around the gun club by the health department, had that situation checked out. I'm actually really confident that that isn't a problem, you know, as far as affecting the aquifers out there. It is something that I think does alarm people. People have heard so much about lead and paint, lead in gasoline, other things, other sources, that they're sensitive to that, and it has been a real problem for developing children in some cases, but that's not what we're talking about here. You know, it's actually needs to be cleaned up after you move, but by and large, it doesn't migrate much. You know, this is a situation, you know, it's not a business license that we have out there either. It's a license to use our property, which is different than the whole concept of business licenses. So I just want to make that clarification as well. And that permit process is going on in its own way. We don't really act on it as commissioners. So.
Right. Yeah, on that, commissioners, I think it would probably be viewed as interference if the commissioners themselves were to try to insert themselves into what's been established under county regulations and ordinances as a administrative permitting process. And so actually, I think we would take on liability for interfering with a regulated process. We would start to essentially politicize it by trying to hold a public hearing in this form on something that's been delegated to the department, and if necessary, if it reaches a threshold to a hearing.
We would get involved in anything, it'd be a change in the license agreement.
Right, exactly.
That's not happening here.
Right. The license agreement is, if I recall correctly, is of 5 years duration, and I don't recall offhand where it's a couple of years into it, so it's not 5 years hence. It's maybe 3 or 4. As noted, what we did do is, while not legally required to do so, and this is a comment I think that representatives from the Sportsman Association has alluded to, we weren't required to bring in an outside staffing to review the application, but given the contentious history about non-conforming uses, especially of gun clubs, or of shooting ranges rather, And also, given the fact that this is property owned by the county, we wanted to go through extraordinary lengths to assure the public that this was getting a fair and impartial review under county regulations. And so that's why we went outside of county staff and contracted with Polsco staff to do that. So it's above and beyond what we legally were required to do, but thought it was prudent to do so.
You probably perceived that you were not complimented for doing that very thing.
That's okay.
But I think you brought it up before the board, and I believe that we all thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. And also along those lines, there is some permitting that's being done requested by the Jefferson Equestrian Association for the Equestrian Event Center, also on county property nearby there actually, and that too is being reviewed by the Polsco staff for similar reasons, just to make sure that there's independence.
Well, I think there's always going to be a conflict, naturally, between people who would like to have their permits acted upon very quickly, and then the duty to protect the public in general from changes in land use. And I don't know of a way to avoid that. It's really difficult if we are sincere in our efforts to protect the public interest. It's going to take time sometimes, particularly in things that are in areas that are complex, like lead. I know that on the State Board of Health, I've seen that the maximum allowable amount of lead in water is close to zero because of the danger of plumbism, and particularly among young kids, like you mentioned, people whose immune system is I think we probably most of us are old enough to remember plumbers dealing with melted lead and kids running around and thinking it looked really cool.
Yeah, lead solder on pipes.
Yeah, yeah, they used to do it.
Commissioners, Ms. Roney referenced a water system owned by the PUD, and what I will do is have Margie Boyd from our Environmental Health Division in Public Health contact Jim Parker, who's the manager of the PUD, to just make sure that we've got good communication lines and that whatever information there is from the Health and Department of Ecology site investigation is shared with the PUD, and concerns that they may have that we're addressing. And then also, at some point, perhaps once EPA has closed the matter, or sooner if you wish, may make sense to, in an afternoon session, workshop. There was the concerns raised by a citizen that Department of Ecology and our Department of Health responded to in an investigation. There's been a subsequent, as that investigation was completing, the citizen then raised the issue to the US EPA, which is currently going through an analysis of the data and trying to determine what sort of investigation they may do. So that's ongoing, that's in progress still. Certainly when that is completed, I think it would warrant a briefing to the commissioners. If you'd like one sooner than that, can certainly provide that, so your call.
I think the PUD may have Department of Health analysis of their water quality of all their systems on their website. Double check
Good
that.
point. And address a different topic. Mr. Sickle was here addressing the Brennan motel, and I think as commissioners are aware, staff is working on RFP. So we are diligently working on that. Because of the complex nature of the property there, which is not just a motel, but also is a community center. It's not just a simple slam dunk on how to manage that. So we are working those issues through. And he is right. He's not been given the courtesy he deserved, and I apologize for that, and I'll follow up on that.
I was thinking Stan Walters was the one that invited us down there that day, and maybe he's one that could connect with rescue. It's kind of, you don't really have a formal person or a group to say, okay, I want to notify you, it's going to take longer than the 60 days. But I remember how that came up. They asked for 30, and you said, no, it'll take 60, and it's taken longer, and I know other things have happened, but maybe Stan would be one to contact too.
Yeah. And just to let you know that I have been in contact with, there are two parties that are potentially have expressed interest in responding to an RFP, two different groups, and I have been in contact with both of them. So.
Okay. Community amendment.
Yeah. And then also a comment was raised by Mr. Tiersch regarding letters of interest, and I'll need to follow up, get a little bit more information on it. I know that this is for boards and commissions, one of the issues that has been something that we've tried to be sensitive to in the past is that evidently volunteers are personal information that comes in on that is frequently exempt from public disclosure for privacy reasons. But whether we're handling it the right way, or whether these are letters that were in fact received by the OCC, sometimes the letters of interest go to the individual departments that are overseeing that. So I'll need to follow up. I'll coordinate with Lorna, and we'll follow up on that, to look into that. And I think that's it.
Commissioners briefing. While you're checking, I'll just mention that it was a pretty exciting day yesterday. Here in Port Townsend, there was a dedication of 2 homes that had been constructed by Habitat for Humanity, and they had a very exciting ceremony of handing over the keys. And for one of those families, I don't think there was a dry eye in the crowd. These folks have been working on this house for I believe over a year, and there were a lot of folks there who swung a hammer and picked up garbage, and it was really beautiful to see. There's quite a crowd there up on 20th Street. And then there was a larger crowd, as mentioned in the paper this morning, on a tsunami presentation. And there was the quasi-comforting statement that we would have quite a bit of time really to be warned by a tsunami that occurs on the from the Cascadia subduction zone. If there was a tsunami caused by other events, such as an earthquake on South Whidbey Island, that there would be much less time.